Most change doesn't begin with a plan, but with discomfort. It starts in that moment you realize something's wrong and you can't ignore it anymore. I'm Saskia Falcon. Welcome to The Odds in Our Favour, a News 24 Good News podcast brought to you by Old Mutual Wealth, helping you grow, protect and preserve what matters. This is a podcast about people who are not waiting for change. They're building it. On the 21st of November 2025, just days before marking 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, South African women brought the country to a standstill with one clear demand: declare gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster. As it has since been declared, this wasn't just a protest, it was a signal of what happens when people show up for each other at scale. So what does it take to turn collective outrage into organized action? Today, I'm joined by Sabrina Walters from Women for Change, the movement that spearheaded that shift and is proving that when we come together, we can make the powers that be stand still and listen. Sabrina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start at the beginning. There's always a moment, they say, always a trigger, always a tipping point. Did you have one, and what was that?
Yes, I had a tipping point. So in 2016, I was leading an all-woman running community called Catch Me If You Can. This community was built around sisterhood, movement, and the belief that we are safer in numbers. Similar to Women for Change, it grew into a national movement where women would meet in different suburbs. They would run together, early mornings, late evenings, and we placed different Catch Me If You Can leaders, as we called them, during that time. That sense of safety was shattered when, in March 2016, a young girl was murdered in Tokai Forest. Her name was Franziska. And she was on a run while she was raped and murdered. And one of my Catch Me If You Can leaders would run the same route than Franziska twice a week with a group of women. So when that happened and they were still searching for Franziska, she called me and she said, "Sabrina, this has happened." And as I mentioned, our movement was built around sisterhood. So we would have done charity events and sanitary pads drives. So we were talking on the phone. I was obviously shocked. And I think not long later, she called me and she said, they found her. And it was the same evening when we decided we need to get back into this forest. And we needed to create a moment that people would feel safe again. So I did my research, and I wasn't ignorant about femicide, but I was quite ignorant about the fact how often it happened. And then I found that just days before, another girl was murdered. Her name was Solo, and this time there was no headlines. It was one Cape August headline, and that was it. While Franziska, who was murdered in a very prominent and supposed to be safe area, this case went viral. So 1 week later, and we called it Women for Change, because we couldn't call it Catch Me If You Can, we called the people to come back to this forest, and 4,000 people showed up to stand together against gender-based violence for Franziska, for Solo, and this was incredible. I think this was the moment. First of all, Women for Change was born, and second, seeing the power of community for me, and that people really care. So that was the moment.
It's a very powerful moment. And you mentioned sisterhood a few times there. The people that showed up, were they mainly women, or was it women and men? Do you remember?
Men, children, horses, dogs, everyone. Everybody. What was really beautiful is also seeing not just the community in Tokai and Constantia. It was people from all over. It were people coming from Kadicha who would stand in this forest for Franziska. So that was really incredible, and it was everyone, mainly women, because we are affected by this cause, and we're the ones who mainly show up. But I remember a lot of men there as well, and a lot of children. I mean, Franziska was 15 years old.
Yeah, she was very young. And in fact, the story still resonates today if you drive past there. There's always ribbons tied on that fence for her.
Yes. It's been 10 years. I was there 2 weeks ago for the 10 years anniversary. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, it feels like yesterday.
It's incredibly daunting to take on a crisis of this scale. So I'm thinking back to you being there, seeing thousands of people show up. It was obviously unexpected that there would be that much support. And then you walked away from there thinking, I have to do something about this. It can't just be this. So you then formalized it. But to take on a crisis of this scale, gender-based violence, femicide, these are not small problems. Did that not feel overwhelming in the early days?
It did feel overwhelming, but I think what is important to mention is I did not want it to create an organization.
Right.
This wasn't my goal ever. We wanted to continuously drive awareness. So it took us 2 years to find a partner, which was Sandton City in 2018, who gave us their space and allowed us to do an official Women for Change race. So again, we had over 4,000 people joining us at Sandton City doing 16 days of activism. And we won. Women, children and men again won officially against gender-based violence. We painted the streets of Sandton purple. It was beautiful. And we did it again in 2019. And then planned it for 2020 in March in Cape Town and Greenpoint. And then a couple of days before, President Ramaphosa, he announced a lockdown because of COVID. And then everything shifted. I knew the efforts that we have created for gender-based violence were kind of blur away because there was another pandemic on the rise. But I also knew that gender-based violence will rise because now women are trapped at home with their perpetrators, especially in domestic violence situations, same as children. My background is marketing. So I took it on social media, and we did have a platform on social media, but I shifted. I started sharing stories. I started sharing the stories of femicide cases. I started continuously raising awareness, and I did it every single day. And I think it just took a couple of weeks until the first survivors reached out to me and shared their stories with me, until families would reach out and say, please, my daughter was killed. Please share her story too. So this is how it started. I never saw it coming. And that, I think 2020 was the turning point. How Women for Change shifted and how it's still a movement. And I think many people don't see Women for Change as your traditional organization. Even we are a non-profit organization. But I think it's still, it's built by the people. It's built by the community. And not by its board and its founders, I always say. So, yeah, that's how it moved from the awareness to the actual support system and social media awareness and advocacy work.
Now, mobilization, marches, protests, national shutdowns, that was a route that you guys chose quite deliberately. And it was like South Africa was waiting for the moment to organize. So talk to us just a little bit about that.
There's many ways of protest. Absolutely. And I think for us, it comes down to capacity and impact. Before the shutdown, we were a team of 4 people. Today, we are a team of 5 people only. So mobilizing an entire country is already an immense task. The years before, I would always get messages of people saying, when is Women for Change marching? When is Women for Change protesting? Please, let's go to the streets. So I always had it in mind, but it also felt an incredible, difficult task and a lot of responsibility, especially Women for Change being a national movement, which meant it needs to be nationwide. When I started the petition in the beginning of 2025, we already planned to hand it over in April, which we did on the 11th of April. We handed it over at the union buildings. And this was the first kind of its protest, which was beautiful. But I had in mind the entire year that the G20 was coming up. So I knew this would be the strongest time to really create visibility and impact, because it was important for the country and the whole world would look at us. So I had it in mind, and I also always had the shutdown in mind. However, because we're such a small team, we can't just plan, and we don't have those timelines. It's often very ad hoc. So I think the shutdown felt like the right time. It felt like we had the right people behind us in terms of the community was really powerful already, and we had that drive of that we were calling for President Ramaphosa to declare gender-based violence finally a national disaster. So it goes back to the impact I wanted to see, the visibility, and I think this is really what happened. It was the visibility. 750,000 people changed their profile picture to purple without us spending 1 cent on advertising. So
incredible.
That was incredible. I think it really worked, and I think it was different. I didn't want to call for people marching. I was scared of violence. So I think the shutdown and people gathering and the 50 minutes lie down was very powerful, very different. And it also felt on that day that it wasn't just a protest anymore. It felt like survivors were finally seen for me. So that's why.
A lot of people saw from the outside the incredible response from people to participate. But of course, nobody had the view from the inside of what it actually takes to organize something like that. So we see the crowds, we see the mobilization, but take me into those moments inside, because you could not have predicted the uptake at all. Is it what you expected? What was success looking like when you first discussed it with you and that handful of team members?
For us, success means that the government is listening. It means that we are changing how gender-based violence looks in this country. It means for me eradicating this pandemic. So that's the real goal, always. And it's not really important on how we go there. It's important that we finally get there. Like I mentioned, we are a small team capacity. So I had this in mind, but we just came out of August, Women's Month, really busy for us. And then survivor support is the most important pillar of what we deal with. So whenever a case comes in, it's more important than any other campaign. So I remember Melise, who is our operations manager, she would, in September and October, she would ask me regular, Sabrina, is the copy done for the G20 shutdown? Sabrina, is the artwork done? I still do a lot of this work. We don't have big media. We don't have media houses behind. We do everything in-house. So it wasn't done. So it was the beginning of November. We had 3 weeks left that we finally had everything. And then we published it, and it took 2 days until the government was shaking. That went very quickly.
Right.
Because it was the day before the G20 was supposed to happen. And then we had a strategic meeting actually on a Friday. And then on Friday night, I saw a TikTok video of a woman who said on the 21st of November, we will all change our profile picture on purple and we will shut down South Africa. And then I saw hundreds of comments under this TikTok video. And I saw all the purple profile pictures. And I sent it to Melise and I said, we're going viral. And I mean, we go viral quite often, but this looked different. And then on Saturday, I woke up, everything changed. I had my friends calling me and said, have you seen TikTok? Have you seen what's going on, Sabrina? And it was 24 hours later that the Mall of Africa changed its colors in purple. I didn't share it because I thought it's fake news. Like I literally had to wait for someone to verify that they actually did that. And I think that's how pressure started. And then celebrities like Tyler changed her profile picture. And on Monday, we were already sitting at 5 FM with the Department of Women discussing the shutdown. First time ever since we handed over the petition in April.
Wow. So
that obviously showed us what happened. And nothing was planned. We never expected that. I think I don't know how I think our lives just turned upside down, all of our lives. More than 200 interviews. So at one point,
sure,
everyone did interviews in the team. The entire world now looked at us. We looked at the signatures. We reached 1 week before. Also, maybe I should mention it was 2 weeks that we went viral before the initial shutdown. So that was great, but it was so much pressure. It was the craziest 2 weeks of my life. We hardly slept. Phone was ringing. government meetings. We were pulled in left, right, and center. Now they had things to discuss with us. International media looked at us. It was just crazy. And then it was a week before the shutdown when the petition hit 1 million, when we sit in that meeting with the government. And they say to us, okay, we are actually going to look at the disaster again and see how it can fit into the framework of the disaster management. And then one day before the summit, I flew to the G20 social summit. I spoke there. And my last words were, the entire world is looking. I now ask our government to also look and act. And then one day before the G20 summit, President Ramaphosa, he announced the national disaster. I didn't watch it. Again, my phone just started ringing, and then I never believed that would happen. Even seeing the entire world now shining a light on the extreme high femicide figures in South Africa and speaking about what is going on, and me still having hope, I didn't see that it would be really declared a national disaster. So I think the biggest win of my life.
100%. And for a lot of South African women.
Wealth is about more than just numbers. It's about what you're shaping, your ambitions, your priorities, your legacy. That's why Old Mutual Wealth partners with skilled financial planners to bring the expertise of a leading wealth manager to your strategy. They help you make sense of both local and global opportunities, offering clear strategic insight so you can make confident decisions, whether you're building your wealth, protecting it, or shaping your financial future. Take your wealth further.
I think it demonstrates perfectly what happens when, this really was a grassroots mobilization, actually. It was a call that you guys put out, and then the people were ready for it. And then you chose the timing so well with the spotlight being on South Africa. But I want you to take us back to, because you've been calling for government to pay attention for a while. I mean, with your petition that you dropped on the 11th of April and Dololo, and now all of a sudden they were interested. I want you to just tell us a little bit about what that felt like when you first got the call. I don't know if it was a physical call or how they reached out to you, but that must have felt like quite a triumphant moment.
Honestly didn't. I didn't understand why they were scared of us, because we just asked women to stay away from work. And honestly, when we were pulled into the meetings, we declined them, because we said we don't have the time. We are going to shut down the country. And it was about us not shutting down the country. That was the first meetings. And then I think they figured out quite quickly that whatever, we would shut down the country. I mean, I actually told them in a meeting, there's nothing we can do anymore. Everyone is looking at us. I could even come out and say tomorrow we are not going ahead, we will go ahead. Because of the entire pushback I experienced in the last year and the years before as well, I don't know, it wasn't a triumph. When we got it, it was. That was incredible. Right. And we had a meeting scheduled on the same day. So we had a meeting half an hour after President Ramaphosa announced it. So when Minister Labisa said to us, it happened, Sabrina, we will sign it tomorrow. And they actually called me when I was driving on the 21st on my way to the shutdown, when they said, we have actually signed it this morning. So that shift was incredible, because I knew I would arrive and we wouldn't fight anymore. We would now lie down, really to honor the women who have been lost before. And I think that just felt very powerful. But looking back, the last meeting we had with the government was the 19th of December. Since that, we haven't heard anything. It's been a lot of silence. I'm not stopping. We're continuously pushing, even if we are silent at the moment. We are obviously pushing in the background. And I'm really, really hopeful that a shift this year is still coming. And I know there are reasons why this government has to listen this year. But yeah, we haven't seen action.
Talk to us a little bit about some of that resistance also, because when you speak loudly the way that you guys do, you guys don't just get support. You also get a lot of backlash, and you guys have experienced that, particularly with campaigns like the one involving Chris Brown. Talk to us about what that must be like, and then also what it does to the movement and to you personally to have to endure that, because it's on quite a public scale.
It is. It is. And I think we always experience public backlash, often, even before Chris Brown, especially when we speak about celebrities. Chris Brown was very different because now, again, we had global attention. And after Chris Brown felt the need to comment on our Instagram post, that also shifted a lot because now we had his fans coming and harassing us. But even during the G20 shutdown, we had harassment, which obviously didn't feel as hectic because we had an entire community really carrying us. But I think what I need to mention is that it's not just the backlash and the harassment by the people who hate women. I've also experienced a lot of backlash by the GBV space and the feminists themselves, especially after the G20 shutdown, which was quite overwhelming for me because I would not understand. And I've learned in the last years that the GBV space can become very toxic. Different reasons. A lot of people fight for the same resources, but also there is a lot of funding in the GBV space. And there's a fact that the funding always goes to the same people. And we see really little impact. So frustration with many organizations and other organizations who really hold a lot of power in that space. So when the G20 shutdown happened, we felt quite alone. We reached out to many organizations that didn't stand with us, which I guess comes back to funding. We still have no institutional funding until today. Everything what we do is backed by donations, by community, by small businesses in South Africa mainly. So I can be loud, I can be the voice. I have nothing to lose. I never had anything to lose. So I understand, and I'm happy to be the voice. But I must admit the harassment and the backlash can be quite overwhelming. So often I don't just deal with GBV. I deal with legal battles. I deal with extra security on protests because I need to make sure those women are safe. And like you mentioned, when you become loud and you become a voice, people don't like that. But I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to follow my passion and to save the women and children of this country. So, yeah, it's okay.
Let's talk about that, because in the middle of all the activism, there are these real people, survivors, women who are not statistics, but whose stories actually offer us a bit of a mirror to the society that we're building. From your point of view in the work that you've been doing, what is it that you wish that people really understood beyond the headlines about the lived experience of these survivors and the ones that have not, sadly, come through?
I think we saw desensitized by all the news every single day, by the violence in South Africa and the violence worldwide. So I think that's first. Second, for Women for Change, I think we made it very clear in the past years, women are not statistics. Every femicide case has a story, there's a name to it, there's a family. And I think what people often miss is femicide, the impact is insane. The millions of children left behind that no one is talking about. Every woman who is killed, most of them are mothers. And those children, most of the time, lose their mother and their father, because often the father is the perpetrator. And we see it all the time. And then it's the families. I have reported on almost 2,000 femicide cases. 90% I reported on them, and most of them, they were reported by the family members. And I have families on my private WhatsApp, many of them speaking for years. So what I can tell you is the impact on families is incredible hard. And the injustice that comes with it. The amount of families who stop fighting because they're simply, they can't anymore. They're losing hope. And they actually say to me, Sabrina, it's okay that we never find the murder. We just can't. And I think that is what people don't see, because often the media highlights femicide. But what happens after? What happens to the people who are left behind? And then survivors. We are living in a society with so many broken people. And someone very close to me said once, broken crayons still color. so are women in this country. And I think we don't realize how women carry everything. We are most often a breadwinner, we are mothers, we have to go to work, we have to show up, and we are often broken. And we are the one who are most violated in this country. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be rape. It can be harassment, it can be catcalling, harassment at the workplace. And then third, yes, the statistics are over 40,000 rape cases a year, but 95% are not reported. So we're actually speaking about probably 1 million women and men and children being raped every single year in South Africa. And I think this is something that we really need to speak about, on the impact on a woman, the impact on men, the impact on families. And that's, for me, is what people need to understand. It's not just the moment. You need to live with that. And that is really incredibly hard, especially when you don't get justice. And I have dealt with thousands of cases and I have never seen justice. Never. Because for families, even if they get their life sentences, which is really, really rare, it doesn't feel like justice.
So justice is completely elusive.
Completely elusive, because most families who get to that life sentences, they're fought for like 5 years to get there. And then this is really not a majority on cases.
Do you think we're making any progress at all, Sabrina, in the work that you've done in the time that you've done it?
Yes, I think we do.
What?
For me, it's the women that speak up. I've seen more and more women. I deal with a lot of high-profile cases too, cases that I can't share. But we have a lot of powerful women who have found their voices too. And I think this is important. And I think what Women for Change really showed is the power of voices. Because often we share one story and we have more women sharing their stories with us. And I think that's where healing starts. Even the classification of gender-based violence being a national disaster, we don't feel the impact yet. We have something we won. And I knew we wouldn't change the discourse immediately, but I have something to hold the South African government accountable, and I will not keep quiet about it. So yes, we are changing the way forward, and I don't know, I can't promise that we're really seeing the statistics drop. We also can't, because we don't have the recent femicide statistic. They have been missing from the crime statistics since 2 years. So I don't even know how many women have been killed in 2024 or 2025. But I think it's women that speak up, which really is inspiring for me, and I think that is what we see, the shift.
I've also noticed a little shift of more men speaking out as well, which has been a big relief, because this is actually a male issue that comes to bear with women. How have you seen this change?
Yes, I have seen the change. I must say I'm lucky to have quite a few male allies, rallying behind Women for Change, even if it's in the background. And yes, I also saw the uptake during the G20 shutdown. However, for me, it's not just showing up. What I still miss is that men call other men out. We all know that saying, we all know a survivor, but we don't know rapists. And it's the silence that is killing women. And it's the silence that make more women get into dangerous situations. So I wish that men not just show up, also speak up. So this is my biggest wish. But I mean, we have men sharing their stories with us too. So I would wish that also men find their voices, because we know they are victims of gender-based violence too, and violence of other men. So, but yeah, I'm hoping we see more of them.
Tell us a little bit about the support programs that Women for Change offers. What does that look like, and how can people reach out if they're listening?
So I think from the beginning, when we shifted to social media, the victim support happened, which many people don't know. But for years, between 2020 and 2024, I've done the entire work on my own. We had hundreds of survivors reaching out every single day to us, sharing their stories, wanting guidance, resources, referral. So that is really part of the main work we do. And then last year in August, we were incredibly lucky to be awarded with a grant by the High Commission of Canada. And we were finally able, I had that in mind for many months, even years, to launch our own survivor line, which we just did 2 weeks ago. So we launched, yes, I'm very happy, we launched our own Women for Change survivor support line on WhatsApp. We kept it digital because I have seen the uptake in digital support. It is much easier, especially for young people, and Women for Change reaches, our main target group is 14 to 39.
14.
14.
That is so young.
Even you wished you wouldn't see, children on social media. I'm lucky, I'm happy they are there and can reach out to us. We have children as young as 11 who reach out via the DMs. And even since we have launched the support line, it's really young people coming through that support line. So it's on WhatsApp. It works very easy. Survivor can reach out, or family members can reach out via WhatsApp. We have 4 options. So you just send a message, say hi, and then you can choose between talk to us, where you will be able to speak to a support specialist on Women for Change. And then they will help you, to guide you, to help you with counseling. We have in-house counselors. They help you with legal advice or referrals. Then you can also report a femicide. So now for families, we have a really safe way reporting, sharing the information we need with us, images, age, what has happened. And then, like we did before, there's an approval process. So once we've written the story, the family first approves before it goes public. Then we also have Share Your Story. I have seen the uptake on women wanting to share the stories, but again, we need to make it safe. It needs to fit in a legal framework. We can't just call out perpetrator. So that is another option that you can use. And then crisis resources. So in case you need a number, even for sex workers or the queer community, we have those numbers on our WhatsApp line now. So if they don't want to speak to us or it's the weekend and they need immediate help, there will be a 24/7 hotline. So I'm absolutely happy and proud that we were able to establish that WhatsApp line. We have seen a lot of intake. And then obviously people are still able to reach us via social media or via email, so the usual way. And yeah, this is what we do. And we help hundreds of people every single day. I think people underestimate like what Women for Change really is. Yes, it is advocacy work and it's the mobilization, but it also really is survivor support. And this is why the movement is strong, because I know the stories. So I advocate for those stories. And yeah, I'm very proud that we were able to achieve another big milestone for us. So you can reach us on WhatsApp on the number 069 360 8296. You can also go on the website where you can easily click through the links. You can also reach the WhatsApp line, or you reach us on our social media channels. So very easy.
And that's one number for everything.
That's one number for everything, one number for everyone. This is for every survivor, woman, children, men, queer people, sex worker, whoever wants to reach out to us. We don't judge. This is a safe environment. Your data is safe. And there are really great people on that line that will be able to help you, to guide you, whatever you need.
Mia, it really strikes me that you're working in the space of creating safety. When I listen to what you're sharing with us, there seems to be a real need for it. And I think the digital side of it also creates that additional layer of safety for people to be able to reach out when it's good and when it's safe for them. It says a lot about the lack of safety in our society. What is next for you guys?
So obviously the support line is this is what we are working on at the moment. And then holding the government accountable, very important for us too. And then we obviously work on other projects in the background, great collaborations that will come out this year. So there's a lot. But again, we are only a team of 5 people. So we also really need to strengthen the operations. We had an uptake, more than 1 million followers on our social media platforms, 1.8 billion reach last year. So incredible numbers for only 5 people to carry and a support line. So what we are really looking now is strong partnerships, funding to strengthen the team and operations, and then everything will come.
Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your story. We're reminded that discomfort is actually easy to ignore. We rationalize it, we delay it, we tell ourselves we'll deal with it later, but every now and then someone chooses differently. And when we see that others are not waiting to feel ready and acting, then it actually shifts something within us to be able to participate as well. It reminds us, for those listening, that the odds don't actually change on their own. They actually change when people change, when we question what's normal, when we challenge, and when we choose to act, even in just the smaller ways. Because again, the systems that we live in are actually shaped by the choices that we make every day. Thank you so much for sharing your story.